Good evening. Welcome to Kitchen Table Progressive. Paul Richardson here, along with Joyce Nance, inviting you to join us for an hour of casual conversation around the table, where the menu is progressive and the table manners are decidedly liberal. On the program this week, Trump's trial date is set in the Mar-a-Lago documents case. We'll check in about that real quick here in the beginning. 19 red state attorneys generals are implementing essentially runaway slave laws for women seeking abortions in other states where abortion is legal. That's a really frightening development. 13 of these red, in segment 2, we'll get to 13 of these red state AGs have written warning letters to top corporations, warning them not to use race in hiring or be charged with some kind of discrimination in the workplace. Also, a conservative group is threatening law schools that their admissions of minorities should start going down since they can't use affirmative action anymore by the Supreme Court ruling last month. In segment 3, we'll just look into the question, why is Ron DeSantos such a jerk? That's just a big question. He's just not a very likable guy, is he? And finally, we'll check in with the J6 Watch with Joyce. And let me bring in right now the co-host of our program, Joyce Nance. How you doing, Joyce?
Hi, Paul. I'm doing great, and I'm so excited about this show. It's got ideas and things and words that I've never even heard of before.
Yeah, coming out of everywhere, coming out of our eyes, coming out of our who knows where. So the Trump trial date's been set for May 24th in the Mar-a-Lago documents seizure case. What do you think about that date? Does that mean anything?
Well, it's right in the middle of, it's kind of at the end of primary season.
Right.
So, but there'll be a lot of noise building up to it. I am going to doubt that it's going to happen on that date anyways. But even if it did, in 2016 or 2020? I guess it was 2016 when it was actually competitive. Trump clinched the nomination, I think, around May 3rd. So it could have an effect on the general election, and it will. If anybody on the Republican side decides to talk about it, then it still could have an effect. Chris Christie has shown that he does want to talk about it, and who knows, other people might get so desperate they might do it too.
Yeah, I heard a couple of analysts who had the same opinion. I suppose that the Trump team, the Trump legal team, was happy with this date, this May 24th, because as you said, this will pretty much be the end of primary season, so it's not going to affect Trump's not much. Certainly not the trial won't affect Trump's ability or his chances, his opportunity to get the nomination. But on
the other hand, though, charges, the indictment counts have not been listed yet. And people have been all over the place of what they might include, including insurrection or not. So I think those might make a big difference, and they have not been made public yet.
Right, and that's just there's the January 6th charges could be coming, and there's the charges in Georgia are. I don't know. Is it six and a half dozen the other? In terms of our looming charges as ominous, because people, I don't know with the Republicans if it actually matters, because I would think that you really want to bet on this nominee who is got more and more stuff coming down on him, and just to be contradictory, the radical. I don't even know what to call. A basket of deplorables. That's what they are. The Trump.
That lost Hillary the election.
Well, I don't care. I'm not running. I was, I did think about.
This is a delightful phraseology.
I do. I was thinking I'd like to find out what it takes to file to run for president, and file as a Republican, and then challenge Donald Trump to some kind of a duo or something, a duel.
A duo like Andrew Jackson style.
Any kind. I was thinking more like medieval.
Jousting.
Yeah, jousting. With first we do the joust, and then if our jousts break, then we go to the battle axes and the swords, and it would be done on about a football size field, with people in the stands. I mean, I would just see if he takes me up, but he probably wouldn't show up. But anyway,
I would vote for the Andrew Jackson style.
That would be totally mine.
Really, because I think it was probably just about as deadly as the jousting, maybe less so, because I think Andrew Jackson was maybe in like 10 duels or something.
Yeah, he was. For the one thing I'd feel comfortable about in terms of a duel with Donald Trump is he's a lot bigger target than I am. So I wouldn't. I wouldn't. I think I would be in that favor. Of course, not that it matters with dueling pistols. I don't see maybe as well as he does, but that's why I would be bringing an AR-15 because being blind, I need to lay down a lot of lead fast. So that's just why blind people need to have semi-automatic. That's all I can say.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't know, but. He won't even get in the debate arena, so I don't think.
No, he won't. No, there's not going to be any debates. What is there to say? It's just Okay, well, we'll leave that. There's be plenty to comment on Trump's legal woes coming up. But so the other topic here is this is a little more serious. 19 red state attorneys general are fixing to implement these runaway slave laws for pregnant women who go to other states, these red states where abortions are restricted, severely restricted, or totally illegal, to red states or to other states, mostly I guess blue states. Apparently, there are no red states that have it, illegal abortions, or they're severely restricted. If these women go to another state to get an abortion and upon return will be prosecuted for violating the law in the state from which they came, whence they came, this just is a frightening. Well, first of all, it's blatantly unconstitutional by the reciprocity clause of the Constitution, which is Article 4. Section 1 states that the states will respect each other's laws.
Right.
And
there, yeah.
And here's the thing. This is an attempt to, and I think this is what the fascist right wing is trying to do. They're trying in both of our topics here in the first half are addressing this. They are trying to reestablish what justice really is. The laws apply, they don't apply to the people, they apply to the jurisdiction. They apply in the jurisdiction.
But they're picking and choosing which ones they want to cross state lines to enforce. Nobody is running over or watching people in California to see if they smoked a joint when they go back to Indiana or wherever it is not legal. There's nobody cares.
Yeah, well, did bring up a point that I was going to touch on, but the governor of Washington State, Jay Inslee, wrote a formal letter to the governor of Idaho because this was coming up in Idaho that they were going to prosecute people who came to Washington or I suppose Oregon. Jay Inslee wrote it to this, what's his name? Brad Little, I think is the governor of Idaho. He said, don't do it, bud. That's just a bad idea. That's just really going to cause this is going to balkanize America. This is just one more thing to balkanize America. And if look at it this way. This could go both ways, but let's say their gambling is not legal in the state where you live, and you take a vacation to Las Vegas. Yeah. Are they going to prosecute you when you come back?
No.
Well, why the hell? Or for instance, you go to Las Vegas and of course, prostitution isn't legal in any of these states other than Nevada, right? Isn't prostitution legal in Nevada?
It is legal in certain counties in Nevada, not in actual city of Las Vegas, no.
Right, but it is legal in places. And if you go there, well, that's a good example too. If you go to a certain county in Nevada where it's legal, they don't prosecute you when you go back to Las Vegas or to Reno or to Carson City or where they don't prosecute you for having gone to a different county.
No.
This is frightening that they're going to. And I wonder what the court would, the Supreme Court, obviously this will end up there, and or it could end up there. And what I think the right wing will try to do is try to look at this under the Article 4 clause, Section 2, Clause 2, which would be the extradition clause, which is they'll try to twist that somehow and say, yes, we do have a right to charge you because you did something which is illegal in this state. And that the theory being that the law applies to the people, the citizens of the state, not the jurisdiction of the state. And that's wrong.
So they have no jurisdiction to enforce that.
No, they have no jurisdiction to enforce their laws in another state. Mm-hmm. But look at what they're saying. They're saying is that the people are subjects of the state government. Mm-hmm. And that is absolutely false because we elect our state governments. You're not subjects of people that you put in office, right? We're not subjects.
But since you relate it to the runaway slave law, which was at a point endorsed by the Supreme Court, mm-hmm. That's where the problem comes in. 20 seconds.
Yeah. Of course, the 13th Amendment supplanted and overturned the runaway slave law, that part of Article 4. So that doesn't apply anymore. But this would be a frightening thing.
We're coming up to a hard break. We'll be back in a few.
Hey, back with you on Kitchen Table Progressive here on AM 820 WCPT, Chicago's Progressive Talk. I was just thinking about this law to try and prosecute women when this could go the other way. Let's say that in Washington State, somebody comes, you see, Washington State Patrol sees somebody with a Tennessee license plate, and knowing that there are absolutely no permits, firearm permits necessary in Tennessee now for a concealed carry or any kind of carry or open carry, and probably is a good chance that these people from Tennessee, having driven all the way across the country, have brought firearms with them in their car. And the Washington State Patrol just pulls them over and says, "Do you have a firearm in this car?" And they say, "Well, yeah, we do." And so they say, "Well, you don't have a Washington State permit, so confiscate the firearm, impound the car, put the people in jail." I mean, that could go both ways. Your laws are different, and by the way, here's the gun that you have. I mean, this could just run totally afoul. There are too many. It's really frightening. And how this Supreme Court, which has become a political body of the political wing of the Republican Party, how they would rule on this is a scary thought. Next topic here, I wanted to get into a little bit, is relating to the Supreme Court's ruling on affirmative action with college admissions. And of course, just like abortion, the Republicans, they didn't want abortion just to go back to a state decision. They want it to be a national abortion ban. That's you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. And so now, as in last segment, we talked about 19 of these GOP attorneys general wanting to implement these runaway slave laws. 13 of them are have written letters to top Fortune 500 companies, or about, I read it was about 100 companies, warning them not to use race in hiring if these companies exist in their state, or they could face discrimination charges against white people. This is
well, the thing of it is I do believe that that's always been there, like not like advertised been there, but I mean, even just hiring without those extra rules or whatever stated rules, it's already in the Civil Rights Act of whatever it was that you can't discriminate on the basis of race. They didn't say on the basis of any particular race. You just can't discriminate on race. But you know, the thing of it is they do that all the time. So I'm thinking that they just kind of bolded this already in existence law just for harassment.
But yeah, and I mean, I used to see ads in the newspaper that said, you know, an ad for whatever, and then it said AA/EOE, which is affirmative action, equal opportunity employer.
Mm-hmm.
So they were, in a sense, well, I don't know if that's.
They're saying they're equal, and they're sometimes you'll see, like, you know, certain citizens are encouraged to apply, but it doesn't. Like a lot of jobs, they do, especially one I was in on recently, at a community radio station. They black out the names and the genders, and I don't know if they have any reference to age or whatever, but those two things for sure, their names and genders, are blacked out when you go through the first pass. So you can't go, oh, this name sounds black, or this name sounds white, or
So if you pass the first interview, are you saying that? And you
after the first interview, then you're going to be talking to them in person. So you're going to know, you're going to want to use their name and stuff. But the initial pass is completely blocked out.
Okay, so the next part of this is that a conservative group called America First, isn't that the Marjorie Taylor Greene organization? I mean,
is that the one she just kicked out of? Or?
I don't know. But America First is threatening law schools. That what I read in Daily Kos was that they are saying essentially that their minority admissions should be going down because of the Supreme Court ruling. Now, there's something weird here, because if you say that you can't use race, then the only way to challenge a school's admissions is to challenge every admittee on a case-by-case basis, and then say this person should not have been admitted. Now that's an uphill. I mean, you see what I mean? That has to be. If you say no, you either are using a quota system, and by the way, I want to get around to the quota system too, because I've come to the realization that first decision in Bakke versus University of California back in 1977, we've all gotten used to the idea that quotas, you can't use quotas. Okay, no, that was wrong too. But they're saying that no, if they want to basically say that the admissions should reflect essentially the percentage of people, of white people in the society and black people in the society. And we should all be, basically they're trying to enforce their own quota system. You see what I mean? If you're saying why should your admissions go down? Or can I find, and that's what I'm about to point out, is, are you saying that I couldn't possibly find a percentage of Black applicants that would be higher than the statistical average or percentage? That just doesn't make any sense. And so you would have to challenge, once you say that you can't, once you could challenge a school's system if they had a policy that did consider race. But this is the first thing I thought when the Supreme Court came out with this. Okay, now that you've wiped it out and said that, well, people can, oh, I know what John Roberts said. Well, we can't, we're not saying that people can't mention their race on an application. Well, thank you very much, John Roberts, but you never could. You never could tell me what I could say on my application. I could say I was born a poor Black child down in Louisiana. I mean, Steve Martin movie, and I can say whatever I want on my application. It's up to, so now that they said you can't consider race, but that he said only if it is a fundamental, it's a fundamental part of your identity. Well, no kidding. It's part of who we are. My being, blind, it's part of who I am. But by the way, there is no affirmative action for disabilities. Disability does not.
It's the opposite.
No kidding. Well, 69% of disabled people are unemployed. That's kind of at one time or another, and that's 4 out of 5 blind people are unemployed. That's 80%. So yeah, it's exactly the opposite. But to say, if you think about it, yeah, the UC Berkeley in 1977, they held open 16 seats in their medical school for Black people, 16 out of 100. Now, I just checked, the people who identify as African American is 13.6%, which is about 45 million people in the country. And I checked out the statistics of people enrolled in college, which is about 3.8%, just about 4%. And that would be about 1.7 or 1.8 million Black people enrolled in colleges and universities. But think about this. The top 10% of those is still 170,000 people. Now, there's not 170,000 openings. Just the top 10% of Black people enrolled in college, and even the top 1% would be 17,000 people. There's not 17,000 openings in law schools and medical schools across the country. If the University of California, Berkeley only had 100 seats. So you could find enough qualified people if you just looked for Black people. But I think what the white people are saying is that if you look at the white population enrollment in college is about 8 million. Well, take their top 10%. That's 800,000. And the top 10% of that, the top 1/10 of 1% is 80,000. I guess what white people are saying is, since there's so many of us, we should get all the damn seats. You shouldn't be able to consider anybody else because we could fill up all of the enrollments just with us. And if you're not filling it up with just for us, with us, because we're so there's so many of us, then we're being discriminated against. It's like saying,
but like, here's the thing, though. If they did like blind, excuse the pun, admittance with just the written stuff, and they never saw what the person looked like or talked to them in their, they had distorted voice interviews or whatever. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I mean, it could theoretically end up being, like 80% minorities.
Yeah.
Because they were the most qualified. But since it has never been anything close to that, you're going to have to say that it's been discrimination every step of the way.
Right. And look what this group is saying. If the group was saying that they did this totally blind test and it turned out to be, like 60, 70%, they had been at 70% minorities, they'd say, what, you're using that, they'd get sued. They'd get sued for, right. That's what I'm saying is that there are plenty. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, if somehow they were able to do it totally without knowing the race or gender of the person, I do think the composition would be completely different.
Yeah, and I think that there are plenty of top qualified people of all races, but I really think when I started thinking about the complaint about the very first one in Baki, uh, it was the court, even in 1977, they were the ones who were
30
saying,
seconds.
yeah, the court was saying in that case, no, you need to really make sure you hold enough seats open for white people. It was a reverse quota ruling that really, just by saying that no, you can't have a quota for blacks because you have to have a quota for whites. If you have more than your share, then whites are being discriminated against, just like Christians who say, if I
Thanks
can't,
for joining us on this segment of
I didn't get one.
Table Progressive.
Okay, back with you on Kitchen Table Progressive here on AM 820 WCPT, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Okay, Joyce, I got a riddle for you.
What is it?
Why is Ron DeSantos such a jerk?
Because he was born that way, to quote Madonna.
It was an open question. It's kind of an open riddle that you can fill in. Let's explore the number of pithy responses to why is Ron DeSantos such a jerk. I mean, what's with the guy? I mean, he's just is he just trying to be mean to?
Be mean?
Yeah, I mean, one thing he, in terms of governance, he's holding out an open election seat for I think it's a state representative that there's just a special election. He's delaying it because it's in the jurisdiction where Disney is, and it is often or most likely will be filled by a Democrat. So he's saying, "Oh, we're not even going to have it. We're not going to have the. He's not scheduling the election, the special election, to fill that seat."
And how come nobody in the state of Florida can question that?
He's just delaying it. I don't know. I don't know how. I presume somebody will. I presume somebody will question that and say and try to force him. But well, that'll end up in front of the Florida Supreme Court. That's almost like ending up in front of Ron DeSantis's barbecue,
yeah,
barbecue buddies.
Uh-huh. Well, but I mean, the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court, I mean, my question is, has any of his baloney gone to the U.S. Supreme Court? As dubious as they are,
Mm-hmm.
have they like their
No.
book banning, teacher firing, woke baloney?
No, and I think that when we talked about books bans a few weeks ago, I think what I looked up was that book bans can be legal if they meet certain tests of, first of all, a book is offensive as specified under state law. In other words, it can be. There was a case in California, Miller versus California, where obscenity test was the court developed an obscenity test, whether the a common person in that jurisdiction or that state would find the work to be of prurient interest, which is unwholesome. And but these books bans are being kind of the school boards and the librarians are just taking them off the shelves by saying, oh, this has, I mean, not any sexual, you can't just say a book is obscene because it has sexual content. It has to be displayed, or of the test being of human sexuality or human excrement or whatever in a
Okay, but here's my question. And I don't remember the state. It might have been Idaho, but it was in that vicinity. They decided to ban TikTok, which, TikTok is fun, but regardless, that's not what I'm talking about here.
It was Montana, wasn't it? It was Montana.
Montana. Okay. If they're going to ban books based on their prurient values, why do they allow porn, like say Pornhub, which is the biggest one, to be piped into all the constituents' phones and iPads and probably big screen TVs in their house? Why is that okay?
Yeah, I that's why I think about the TikTok ban. I don't think that's the state. That's the FTC, and that's a federal. I don't think a state can ban TikTok.
Well, somehow Montana said that they did, but I don't believe that Florida would even say that they would, because that's all their voters. So they're the straight white guy.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. The straight white guys who can't get. Who are all married, but they can't get by without their porn.
Yeah. Right.
And they're white, and their wives.
It hasn't even been. I haven't heard it mentioned. Like, not a peep.
And their wives all say,
videos that they sell in adult stores, are online.
Yeah.
I haven't heard a peep about any of that stuff. You hear like, oh, we got to ban the drag shows because men are wearing women's clothing. And that's the long and short of that controversy. And but the other stuff, that is quite a bit more extreme, or can be.
Well, I think, as per your question about has it gone to the Supreme Court, some of these things I think are definitely unconstitutional. But here's the thing: if you put the threat of criminalization, and this is all intimidation. In other words, somebody has to be willing to go to the mat. I mean, that is, to take it to the court, to take it to the Supreme Court. Yeah. But if you lose, you're found criminally guilty, and you go to jail. So in other words, they're trying to intimidate people. And I think that's what they're doing with the women, this runaway slaves laws with women. They're not planning on prosecuting every woman who goes to another state. They're going to make an example out of a few of them, and then everybody will. And if they get away with it, or just make these people's lives miserable, which they will, then everybody else will fall in line. And that's what they're really trying to do.
Right. But with the the internet porn stuff, all it has to be is just, I would say, a Democrat bringing up that issue and saying, hey, you're going after Toni Morrison books because they're prurient or whatever. And what about, we can't even say the words of the stuff on Pornhub, etc.
Right.
What, they don't have to bring it to any court. They just have to say it out loud, and more than once.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, so then the other thing about Ron DeSantos is what is the point? Again, with the last segment, we talked about the GOP AGs who are it's going to threaten corporations. The party of business seems to be kind of having a throwdown with business. And Ron DeSantos is, what's the point of starting a war with Disney? Aren't they a huge employer in Florida?
They're the biggest employer.
Oh, they're the biggest employer in Florida, yeah. And by the way, Florida doesn't employ a lot of people. Florida, by the way, is, because it's a retirement state, it's a big state, but it is not a terribly productive state.
They're a taker. I would say they're probably a taker state.
I don't know if they are. I can't say
Well,
for sure.
just with the Social Security
Yep.
age, uh, I
Yeah, they
mean,
don't.
they have the villages, which is like a city of
Yeah,
retirement city.
right. They are not producing. They're not a producing state.
Yeah, even like some of their crops because of the global warming, etc. I mean, they have a lot of problems facing them.
I did a couple of years ago. I just did my own research on productivity per capita, and what I did was I just took this state GDP, the state gross domestic product of all the states, and divided it by the number of people in the state, and that'll tell you. Then you can get a comparison, and some of the big states, Florida was like in the bottom 20%. I mean, Florida was like 41st or and Michigan's another one. Michigan was 40th because Michigan is losing people, and there are a lot of people who are still in Michigan are retired. They don't have young people who produce and make money. That's not where most of Florida is not that. And same with Michigan, and of course the really unproductive states, actually the bottom 17 states from 33 or whatever, 34 down to 50 were actually all red states at the time. So, and they have the lowest wages. So no, that's if they want to go hassle their biggest and probably only employer. I think we're going to see corporations moving out of some of these states. If that's, I mean,
I really feel like if he doesn't get off their back, they might just take that step because for another thing, they're not getting that many visitors because of all the, trouble he's caused around them. And it's, there is otherwise no reason to go to Orlando.
That's true.
The theme parks. I mean, I know there's Universal and maybe a couple other there, but if they don't go to Disney, I'm going to say they're not going to fly there for Universal.
Universal Studios is there?
Yeah, they have a Universal theme park and yeah, but Disney is the big one. Like, you can stay there for a week.
Yeah, that's Disney World, right?
Every day. So, yeah, the Universal one is just small.
And like SeaWorld is out of business probably, right?
If they're not, they should be.
I think that after the whales died, after Shamu died, I think they.
Yeah, they did not do a good job at SeaWorld.
No, it was and Flipper's long gone, I understand. So.
Well, Flipper can come back at any time.
Flippers, but I don't know. And then all the book bans, the Don't Say Gay, and let's see, what was I listening to the other night? But all of these Republicans, they played a montage of
30 seconds.
Anti-woke. It's like, no, woke is anti. Oh, we are going to kill the woke agenda. The woke. I guess that's what plays with the right wing. The MAGA movement is the woke really bothers them. It threatens them terribly. Their values are threatened by liberal woke people who think they're going to.
So we'll be right back for some more January 6th talk.
Paul Richardson here, along with Joyce Nance on Kitchen Table Progressive here on AM 820 WCPT, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Joyce is following the January 6th intensely. She's following the
crime line timeline.
The crime line timeline. Okay, so Where did we leave off last
Well,
last
we
week?
didn't get hardly anywhere last time. I think we
Okay.
just got through October. And I'm going to be adding actually a whole bunch more to this, but for right now, we'll stick with what I got. So,
Okay.
we got up to the DHS saying that white supremacists was the number one threat in America. That was in October 2020.
Department of Homeland Security.
Yep. And so in November 3rd, 2020, this is just really amazing on its face, actually. Conservative talk show host, who was then with Fox News, texts with Mark Meadows promising a big on-air campaign push for Trump.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
That was just a text. I guess nobody was supposed to see that except for Mark. Yeah. But Mark Meadows, who's kind of disappeared off the face of the earth, Mark Meadows.
Yeah, we haven't heard from Mark, have we?
Yeah. So then on November 4th, the next day, Peter Navarro had a phone call with Steve Bannon, the super fun Steve Bannon, during which Bannon says they stole it. So this is the day after the election.
Yeah, because the election was November 3rd, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, next time I'll bring a bunch more about what happened on November 3rd, because that's over the top. On November 4th, Peter Navarro phone call with Steve Bannon. No, that's not it. Former Energy Secretary Rick Perry and Donald Trump Jr. text Mark Meadows on overturning the election.
Oh, overturning it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing is that we don't have a provision in the Constitution for overturning an election no matter what happens. We don't have that. So this is a blatantly unconstitutional plan.
Yeah. If you don't win, then follow these 10 steps.
Yeah.
10 steps, 10 easy steps to overturn the government.
Right.
So also on November 4th, Virginia Thomas, a.k.a. Jenny Thomas, a.k.a. Mrs. Clarence Thomas, texts Mark Meadows. This is in quotes. Mm-hmm. Biden crime family and ballot fraud co-conspirators, which were, in her opinion, elected officials, bureaucrats, social media managers, fake stream media reporters, etc., are being arrested and detained for ballot fraud right now and over the coming days, and will be living in barges off Gitmo to face military tribunals for sedition.
No, wait a minute. Okay. Read that again, because there's an important Supreme Court case that is in direct. Okay, read that again.
Which part?
She's saying that there are going to be people, the people who committed fraud.
Co-conspirators are being arrested and detained for ballot fraud right now. And,
they are.
And over the coming days, and will be living in barges off Gitmo to face military tribunals for sedition.
Okay.
He included elected officials, bureaucrats, social media mongers, fake stream media reporters. That's what's.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the one thing about the whole Trump, the 61 plus fraud cases that they brought to the courts, Sidney Powell and that nut case. They never sued anybody. In other words, if you're going to charge somebody with fraud, and then, by the way, Donald Trump should know, because he had a court certify a case for fraud. Again, in fact, a class action lawsuit for fraud against him in the Trump University case. You have to sue somebody. You can't just go to the court and say, something's fishy here. We were supposed to win and we didn't. So and the reason they know they were supposed to win is because we cheated. And but the other thing is for her to say I'd never heard this one, but that was
from the Washington Post.
Right. Okay. This is from Virginia, Clarence Thomas's wife. There was a case in 1865 called Ex parte Milligan, and it had to do exactly with it. The upshot of the case was anytime the civil courts are open, that means regular courts are open, that people cannot be tried by a military tribunal. And as far as I know,
You mean civilians?
Sorry. Yeah. As long as civilian courts are open, people who are, unless the military tribunal courts are for military trials only.
Yeah.
And so civilians cannot be tried. And that was what in 1865, the ex parte Milligan case said. And that is one of the few I think there are only 3 ex parte cases in Supreme Court history. But if a Supreme Court justice's wife says that is outrageous. That people will face military tribunals. Civilians will face military tribunals.
Off of Gitmo.
yeah, exactly. We're going to take you out of the United States and try you by a military tribunal. What a traitor!
So we can waterboard you for.
Yeah. We can torture you.
Well, they're a fun couple.
They are.
Yeah. And yeah, so all of this stuff just kind of lies below the surface that most people either forgot or never ever heard. So November 4th is still the day after election. Peter Navarro speaks with Kevin Hassett, former senior advisor to the president, about cases of election fraud that would later be proved to be unsubstantiated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they didn't sue anybody. They didn't have an adversary in court. You got to sue somebody and say, this is what you did. And they didn't sue. And by the way, all of the cases of voter fraud, not election fraud, but voters, every single one of I think it was in total across the country, about 20 or 24, every one of them was a Republican who voted for Trump.
Yeah. Okay, so November 5th, the main character is going to speak at 9:12 a.m. Trump tweets, "Stop the count."
Stop counting.
Stop counting. Yeah. Now, that's got to be unconstitutional on its face, is it? How can you have an election and want to
have him say stop counting? Yeah, or him advocating stop counting. Yeah, well, I mean,
yeah. If he tweets it, it's the same as him screaming it with a megaphone.
Yep, it's the same as him. Yeah, it's an official. Presidential. It's part of the official presidential record. All of his tweets, how many million tweets that he over 4 years are all part of the.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the same as him coming on television from the Oval Office and saying, "My fellow Americans, I come to you with a heavy heart. Stop the count." Can you?
Yeah. Well, he doesn't have a Southern accent; he has a New York accent. But on that same day, November 5th, in Detroit, a state you may have heard of, crowds of QAnon tried to enter Detroit's ballot counting center to stop the vote count.
Right.
Like he ordered them to do it. They got on it. Yes, boss.
Yep. That's interfering with an official process. All of them should be prosecuted. By the way, I just wanted to say about January, and then we keep hearing how it wasn't violent. He said peaceful. You know what? It doesn't matter if obstructing an official process is peaceful. It's still obstructing an official process. In other words, you always hear the right wingers say, "Arrest those liberals! They're sitting down in the middle of the freeway. They're blocking the freeway. They're peaceful." No, but you cannot obstruct a public thoroughway. So it doesn't matter that January 6th
obstruct an election.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if it was peaceful. They obstructed it. And by the way, they weren't standing outside the Capitol saying, "Stop the steal." They were standing outside. They were standing inside the Capitol going, "Hang Mike Pence."
Mm-hmm.
Nancy, where are you?
Yeah. Well, yeah. We haven't gotten to January yet.
Right.
On November 6th, Representative, famous guy, Andy Biggs, texts a plan to Mark Meadows to reverse election results in favor of Trump.
Reverse them.
So he's beginning the monkey business in Arizona, and I do believe that was a state with fake electors. So I believe that is related to the fake electors who, as we speak right now, are getting or have gotten arrested in Michigan. Is that right?
I think so. Yeah, I think they're being charged. 16 of them. Yeah, the ones who tried to occupy the Capitol, or did they? I don't know if they got in or they were planning to stay overnight. I think they went to a side door, knocked on the door, and a state trooper who was on duty in the Capitol came to the door. And they said, "We're the electors," and he said, "No, you're not," and he wouldn't let him in. But what he should have done is he should have said, "Stay right here," and called for backup and had them arrested right then, because he knew that the electors were already inside.
Oh.
Yeah, he already knew. The state trooper knew that the process was that the electors were already inside. So he should have had the presence of mind to say, "Okay, thank you. If you'll stand right here," and then call for backup and have them all arrested. That's what he should have done. But okay, go ahead.
All right. So on November 7th, 2020, 3 days after the election, the AP announces that Joe Biden is the winner. Right. Votes are subsequently recounted in Georgia, and on November 19th, following the recount, Joe Biden is affirmed the winner. That didn't set well.
Must have no.
Yeah.
So they were under. How far are we going to get on this today? They were under the foregone conclusion that because there was fraud, the results must be reversed, because if there's fraud, that means I won.
30 seconds.
Yeah, that foregone conclusion right there seems to be the crux of the problem. That if there's fraud, by the way, if there's fraud, you prosecute the fraudsters. Yeah.
We need to thank everybody for coming by today, and we hope to see you next time in like the virtual sense, at least. And we appreciate you joining us. So thank you.
Thanks for joining us again on Kitchen Table Progressive. Check us out on our website, kitchentableprogressive.com. There's also, you can see a video podcast of this program on our YouTube channel and on Facebook. Join us again next Sunday evening at 6 p.m., immediately following the family meeting, for Kitchen Table Progressive, right here on AM 820 WCPT, Chicago's Progressive Talk.